Hey gang, welcome back from the break. Hopefully you had a wonderful time off with your family, with some friends. We're able to enjoy a little bit of a break, and now we're back into it in the new year in 2026. Excited to get things going here. A lot of good things happening, working on some things behind the scenes that I think you're going to like. I want to start with an Ask Me Anything kind of session. So if you're here and you want to ask me anything at all about digital media, pop it into the chat, pop it into the Q&A. The very first one was an interesting one. This was from a B2B trade publisher. And the question that they wanted to ask is it okay for me to rotate ads on my website? So what I understood that to mean is sometimes, here, let me bring up a site and show you something here. So this is not the person who asked the question. This is just a site I happen to have open right now. So, for instance, this ad, if this ad were to rotate and every 30 seconds or so show up with a different ad and rotate different ads. So I see a lot of publishers do this now, fewer now than I used to in the past, which I'm very thankful for. But I have seen a lot of publishers do this, where this ad will sit here and every 30 seconds or so it'll rotate and it'll give a new ad impression. A lot of ad serving systems will support that. BroadStreet, AdvertServe, even Google Ad Manager will support that. The question is, should you do it? Short answer, I don't think you should. But let me give you the longer answer. Why would a publisher do this? Why would a media company do this? Well, typically you'll do this to generate more ad impressions, right? You're sitting here on the page and 5 ads, are rotating as I'm sitting there. The problem is it's not only this ad, but it could be this ad down here, right? And maybe this ad here. And every 30 seconds or so, those ads are rotating. So you're building up a lot of impressions. Okay, good for ad inventory, but there's some pretty big downsides to that. Not everybody's looking at that ad. So let's say I walk away and go head out and grab a cup of coffee or something. I leave this tab open. Those ads are sitting there rotating. Let's say I move down the page. That ad at the top is still rotating. So we're getting a lot of impressions that your advertisers are not seeing. Sorry, your readers are not seeing. And that's not good for your advertisers. So a couple things happen. One, there's an ethics issue, in my opinion. Is it really ethical of me to be showing ads that are rotating that people don't actually see, right? I don't believe that's an ethical way to handle things. It's not the way I want to handle things as a media operator. And hopefully it's not the way you would want to handle things as a service to your advertisers who are responsible for your business. But secondly, it also causes your click-through rates to go into the toilet. When you rotate ads every 30 seconds or every few seconds or so, you're going to have a ton of ad impressions that people aren't seeing and people aren't clicking. And I will see ad click-through rates go down significantly. When we've worked with some sites and gotten them out of that, we've seen ad click-through rates sometimes go up by a factor of 10-fold, from like 0.02 to 0.2. So again, I typically do not recommend rotating ads like this. The juice isn't worth the squeeze. You may get some ad impressions on it, but at the end of the day, it's going to be detrimental to your advertisers. It's going to tank your click-through rates. And at the end of the day, if those advertisers aren't seeing a return on their investment, are they going to come back and want to buy with you again? So just don't do it. I don't recommend it. And every client I work with, we eventually get them out of that model, and they're very happy with getting out of that kind of a model. So that was one cool question that kind of came through. Had another one ask about AMP. So accelerated mobile pages, AMP. If you're not familiar with what accelerated mobile pages are, I probably should have left my screen share up. Let me show you. So let's take the same article here, but let's look at it. So obviously you look at it from a mobile perspective. If I were looking at it on my phone, this is what it would normally look like. Now, a mobile responsive site is fantastic, assuming you can make it go, make it be speedy enough and fast enough, and it all works properly. However, way back in the day, many, many years ago, Google came out with something called Accelerated Mobile Pages, AMP. Literally, it took a snapshot of a special template. It was kind of HTML light, right? Here's an example. Here's an actual HTML light version, an AMP version of this web page. And so you can see it's much more trimmed down. There's a lot of rules on here. It's lightning fast. Google would take snapshots of these pages and they would actually cache these pages on their own servers. Now, your analytics tags would still load, your ad tags would still load, so you wouldn't lose ad inventory. But it's a much more trimmed down experience designed to be lightning fast. And that's why Google was doing it. They wanted to return content to their users that was really, really fast. And AMP was the solution. AMP was short lived. However, it's not dead. AMP still exists. It's still around. And where I see AMP still come into play today is in Google News, Google News Showcase. Even sometimes I'll see Smart News or Newsbreak. Other news aggregators will pick up the AMP version of the articles because they just load fast. They're just lightning fast. So is AMP still relevant for today? Should you have an AMP version? Well, number one, I never recommended an AMP version of your entire website. The only pages I ever recommended an AMP version of was your article template. I'm still running some tests on this. If your site's really fast, which is hard for media companies to do, and we're going to actually get to that in the next question here, and everything loads really fast, you don't have to worry about it, AMP may not be necessary. But I still see AMP showing up big time, especially for Google News and Google News Showcase. I'm just out of curious. I'm really curious. Does New York Times still do any AMP? Let's see here. No, it doesn't look like they are doing an AMP page here. Okay. I was just curious about that. There's some different ways you can do that. Okay. I'm still seeing AMP work out well. And when I look at analytics, we can track AMP pages separately from other pages. I have some publishers, especially in the regional publishing, news and CRMA and like City Mags and regional business news, where a third of their traffic is coming in from AMP pages. So if you're Google News, if you're more news focused and you've got Google News, Google News Showcase, things like that, I still think AMP has a place. I still think AMP has a place. It is technically deprecated. It is being phased out. If you don't have AMP, I wouldn't recommend adding it. Maybe depending upon the situation. So anyway, I look at this and I say AMP still exists. It still serves a purpose. I still do see some significant traffic coming off of it, especially if you're having a hard time getting your site to operate quickly. That being said, there's a lot of things we can't do with AMP that we can do with a mobile responsive page. So this is a much more trimmed down version of the page than this is. This is a much more kind of impressive operation, impressive functionality, continuous scroll, all that kind of stuff. But AMP can be really good if you're really trying to grab more traffic from Google News and Google News Showcase and other news aggregators. So I don't want to dive too much into AMP, but hopefully that helps with AMP. This is a good one that just came through. Why have my email click-through rates gone down over the past few years? Interesting. So email click-through rates have gone down for several reasons. And email, actually, sorry, I read it wrong. Email open rates, but the email click rates have gone up. Great question. Email open rates versus email click rates. Let's talk a little bit about that for publishers. This is huge. So first of all, I want to make sure I reiterate, email open rates are worthless. And the reason why is because of something called Apple Mail Privacy Protection. Now, this was actually put out in 2021 by Litmus. I like Litmus. They're a fantastic source of good email data out there. Also a very good tool for validating emails. But Apple's Mail Privacy Protection, MPP, you may have heard of that, came out right around this time in 2021. So it's several years old now at this point. But what happened was it used to be that emails that would be opened on Apple devices, you would be able to tell if that email was opened or if that email wasn't opened, just like you can if you're reading it on the Gmail app or Gmail desktop or Outlook desktop or any of those things. However, Apple introduced this mail privacy protection where you can protect your mail activity. And what happens is Apple actually brought in any email that was delivered to an Apple Mail client was considered opened by default. It would open it, cache all the images, and then serve it to me. What does that mean for a publisher? I mean, as a publisher, we could no longer tell if any emails were sent to an Apple Mail device if they were opened or not. In the B2B worlds, not as huge of an issue, although still a big issue, because in the B2B, I would say probably a good 30% of emails, 25% of emails are still opened on Apple Mail, even in B2B. In the consumer world, much stronger, much heavier impact. I mean, even back in 2021, it was close to 50% was Apple Mail in terms of how many emails. So half of emails out there in general were being opened on Apple devices. What this means is your open rates aren't worth squat. You can't tell your open rates. Now, it used to be, I would tell publishers, hey, if you're getting 25 to 30% unique open rate on an email newsletter, you're doing awesome. You're doing awesome. This is before mail privacy protection. After mail privacy protection, that number changed. Now, folks like ActiveCampaign, MailChimp, HubSpot, Omeda, all these email providers, they had a decision to make. Do we report inclusive of the Apple Mail opens? In other words, we have all these emails that we don't know if they're opened or not opened. Do we report them back as opened or do we report them back as unopened? Most of them chose to give the more rosy view as hey, they were all opened, and everybody saw their email click rates just soar. Wow, our email click rate is now 46%, 50%, right? No, your email click rate didn't change. What happened was Apple just said, I'm not telling you anymore. And HubSpot, ActiveCampaign, MailChimp, Omeda all decided to say, nah, we're just going to say they were opened. A couple of providers, actually ActiveCampaign started this way, decided to take the conservative route and said, well, since we don't know, we're going to report them as not opened. And everybody's click rates tanked, right? They went from 25, 30% down to 15, 10%. And everybody was freaking out. So ActiveCampaign quickly changed and went the same way as HubSpot, MailChimp, Omeda, Constant Contact, all those guys, and said, well, we're just going to show them as opened. So you can now, within most email systems, look at your opens inclusive of Apple opens or excluding Apple opens. Either way, if you do with inclusive, you're over-reporting your click rate. If you do it as excluding them, you're under-reporting your click rate. Choose your poison. I typically like to include the number. What we got to realize is, we'll see an exact number. I don't care if you're in HubSpot, ActiveCampaign, Omeda, whatever. You'll look at it and it'll say open rate, 42.4%. And you get such a decimal point and you're like, oh, this has got to be a real number. It is not a real number. It is not a real number. It is a number, but you got to understand the caveat. They're including the Apple opens. So you really don't know. Now, that being said, it's good. It's directional. It's directional. So you can look at it. I typically tell publishers now, if you see, it used to be 30% open rate was kind of considered the benchmark for being good. I now look at 40% open rate as being the benchmark for being good open rates. Anything less than 40%, we got to work on that. If you're hitting 45, 50%, you're killing it. So anyway, that was something I thought I'd share with you guys on that. Conversely, let's talk about click rates just for a brief second. I'd love to open up something, but I don't want to open up one of my clients' ActiveCampaign accounts or HubSpot accounts. That being said, there's also been another thing happening recently, and this is bots. There are a lot of security bots now that will actually go through and check, if not the first link, all the links in an email. right? So these are bots. They're security bots. They're going through, they're checking all the links to make sure they're not linking to somewhere bad. Otherwise, they'll warn you. So so what's happening is these are creating false clicks on your email. So while your email open rates may have declined or gone up because of Apple mail privacy policy, clicks are not affected by mail privacy policy. You click a link, it has to go back through your provider and then back to the end website. You can track it properly. But clicks are impacted by bots, by security bots. And this is happening a lot in the B2B space. You will see that like the very first link in an email has some crazy click-through number. And it's not accurate. It's not accurate. It's that, Joe Schmo's email at company, their bot is looking at all of the links and technically clicking through to see where they go. So most email providers are now providing the ability for you to filter out suspected bot clicks. So there's patterns that they can tell with bot activity. So anyway, just a caveat, email open rates, email click rates, they'll give you exact numbers, but you got to understand the caveats in order to make sense of these numbers and where they're going. So that was a long-winded report for a very quick question. Hope that helps. Thanks, Amy. Appreciate that question so much. I'm going to go ahead and close that one out. Hey, we've got another question in here. This is from Michael. Hey, Michael. Haven't seen you in a while. Good to see you around, man. He says, as discovery shifts from traditional search engines to AI tools like Gemini and ChatGPT, how should we approach measuring and proving their value to advertisers, specifically in terms of how often advertiser brands or content surfaces within AI-generated responses? Okay, that's a good one. So I did a session a few weeks ago on whether publishers should block AI bots from their site, and the pluses and minuses of that. I actually am more of the bent that it is better to block AI bots from indexing your site. That being said, Michael, you bring up kind of an interesting nuance to that. What we don't want is I don't want people going to ChatGPT and just being able to get my latest stories and a digest of my stories and ChatGPT or Gemini utilizing my information to synthesize answers for people and thus robbing me of traffic. And when we've blocked, I won't go over the whole webinar, go back and take a look at it. It was a couple weeks ago. When we've blocked AI bots, we have not seen a decline in traffic at all. As a matter of fact, in some cases, we've actually seen a little bit of an increase in traffic. But Michael, you bring up an interesting question here. We do have the ability to publish sponsored content from advertisers on our site. And that content actually do want to get indexed in the AI bots. So I got to give that some thought, Michael. That's a very interesting nuance to my position. I think still in position, I would rather have it be that way. I'd rather err more toward the blocking than toward the benefits of AI. At the end of the day, if we are looking at sponsored content, I should do a whole seminar on sponsored content. If we're looking at doing sponsored content, our job is to get people into and looking at that piece of sponsored content. And I can tell you right now, AI in general is not going to be the vehicle through which we're going to get a lot of extra views of that sponsored content. Now, it may excerpt some pieces and synthesize it together for an answer. But really, I think our biggest opportunity is going to be, are we using email correct? Are we using social correct? Are we using paid social correct? Are we using SEO properly? Are we cross-indexing in our site and promoting in our site sponsored content to get more people to read that piece of content? At the end of the day, as an advertiser, they want to know, did people read that sponsored content or didn't they? And how many people did, and were they the right people? It's very, very difficult to do in AI. And frankly, I think trying to tune for AI, again, probably isn't worth the squeeze. You're going to be much better off focusing on how can we do a better job of integrating and promoting that sponsored content to our readers and then showing what am I saying? Showing the actual results of that to them. So I hope that helps. But that's an interesting question, Michael. I'm going to think about that a little bit. Okay, let's keep on going on here. Another question came through. Oh, different kinds of users in Google Analytics. That is a great question. Let me see if I can actually bring up a, a Google Analytics without giving away confidential information. Hang on one second here. Um, I'm looking for this real quick, see if I can find it real fast. Okay. I'm not going to be able to bring up Google Analytics and show you, but I can tell you that there are really kind of three different kinds of users in Google Analytics. And this confuses publishers because it's hard to see what they are. But you will see there are different users that are used at different places. So there's this concept of total users. And you got to make sure you know which one you're looking at and which report in Google Analytics. Total users. Total users are exactly that. It's the total number of users who have actually come. I wrote an article about this, or I'm in the process of writing one. The total number of users who have actually been measured by your site. That's total users. So it doesn't matter where they came from. Doesn't matter if they were engaged or not engaged. That's the total number of people. If they've been there before or not, that's total users. Then there's this concept of active users, and active users is used quite a bit throughout Google Analytics 4. So make sure you know which one you're looking at. Okay, make sure you know which one you're looking at. Active users, this is specifically a measurement that Google Analytics does of someone who has engaged with your site. Now, an engagement can be a couple of different ways. If it's the first visit of a user, that's considered an engaged user. If there's a certain amount of time that they're on your site, that's engaged. If they look at more than one page view on your site, that's considered engaged. If you look at if they do a key event like subscribe or to your newsletter or subscribe to your magazine, as long as you're tracking that in Google Analytics as a key event, those are considered engaged subscribers. Sorry, engaged users. Active. So if someone is engaged, then they are an active user, right? So that's the active users. You've got to make sure, because I see a lot of my publishers I've worked with say, these numbers don't look right. I'm seeing this number of users over here, and I'm seeing a lower number of users over here. Well, that's because this is active users versus total users, right? So again, hard numbers, but you got to know the caveats. And then there's one more user. There's new users, and new users are just that. These are people who are new to Google Analytics. It doesn't mean they're always new. It could be that they're looking at you in an incognito window, right? So there's no cookie set. There's no tracking mechanism. Could be they went to a different device. Could be a variety. It could be that they cleared out all their tracking cookies and mechanisms off their browser, right? Could be using a different browser on the same thing. So you just got to be aware of these caveats here. And again, they're using everything from an actual user ID. They're using device IDs. They're using other signals that are on here. I don't want to go out to the key different here, but there really are kind of three different types of users that you will see in Google Analytics. Make sure you know which one you're looking at when you look at each report in Google Analytics. Or in a KPI dashboard. A lot of times I see KPI dashboards that have been created in DataBox or in Looker Studio, and they just say users, but they don't define are they active users, total users, new users, whatever it may happen to be. So make sure you're keeping track of that. So that was a very, very good question. Thanks, Andrew. Okay, I think I've got time for one or two more. If there's any more live ones, pop them in, because I'm going to pop onto one more that was emailed to me before we do. Okay. These two are related. I'll see if I can get to both of them here at the same time. I can't get my publication to pass Google's core web values. Core web values? You must mean Google's core web metrics here. Let me see here. Or Core Web Vitals. That's what CWV stands for, of course, Core Web Vitals. All right, let's talk about Core Web Vitals for a second and what the heck are they and why do you care? So, Core Web Vitals. Core Web Vitals, there's 5 of them. And you can see there's a great tool here called Page Speed Insights. I will pop that into the chat for everyone. I think I can. Yep, there we go. There you go. And the Core Web Vitals, Page Speed Insights is a tool that measures your site's core web vitals, right? And the core web vitals are things like largest contentful paint, interaction to next paint, cumulative layout shift, first contentful paint, time to first byte, really layman's terms, right? This is Google's techs at work here. They don't really care if we understand or not. Here's what it basically means. Largest contentful paint means the biggest chunk of content on your site, which is typically on an article page going to be your body content, right? Interaction to next paint. I won't get into all these. We won't deal with all these here. The biggest culprits that I will see is if your site is slow, it's largest contentful paint, but the other one I see is cumulative layout shift. Now, what the heck is cumulative layout shift? All right, let me show you what that means. First of all, have you ever been on a website or opened up a website and you're trying to read something and all of a sudden as you're reading, it moves down and then it moves down again and it moves down again as things load in on the page. So I want to show you an example. Keep your eye right here on the headline, Peter Fagan to transition. Just keep your eye on that. And I'm going to reload this page. I want you to watch. It'll start up here and it'll shift down. Here we go. Boom. Do you see it shift down as the ad loaded? Ready? Boom. It shifts down. Now, as ads load, the reason why is because when your page loads, the page loads and then it's making a call out to your ad server and it's loading ads into your site. I see this happen all the time. This is called cumulative layout shift. It's called cumulative because layout shift because it's shifting the layout of the page, but it's cumulative because here's another ad here, here's another ad here, and if I were to do this, as every ad loads, as elements load on the page, it moves things down, 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 down. So it can shift a lot. There's some sites I've been on, it is frustrating as all get out. And Google recognizes that. That's why they measure it. They call it frustrating. So you can eliminate cumulative layout shift. Matter of fact, I just implemented this for Providence Business News. So if you go to their site here, let's go to this page here. Boom. There we go. Let me log out. And if you were to take a look at this page, let's take a look here at watch this trending now. This is a big ad. Now, if you didn't have this set up properly, this could start up here and then boom, move way down. Watch. It doesn't. Do you see how it stays right there and then this fills in? Okay, we've successfully combated cumulative layout shift. Now, how do we do that? Because this ad is still called separately. So one of the things that we've done is we've said specifically what ad sizes we are going to set. So for instance, this block here is, that's our menu. This ad here, it's a 970 by 250 billboard, right? If we go on mobile and take a look at it, and I were to refresh here, let's take a look here. Oh, they got a little one. I got to fix this 100 by 100. It won't work there. It's a 300 by 250 ad. I got a little work I got to do with them on this. But both ads are 250 pixels tall. So the 970 pixels wide by 250 pixels tall. And then on mobile, 300 pixels wide by 250 pixels tall. Why? Because we can now hard code this space at 250 pixels tall. That eliminates the cumulative layout. I'm saying, hey, in the template, give me a 250 pixel width, 250 pixel height space. Okay, it loads it in, loads the rest of the content in. There's no cumulative layout shift. Then it goes and grabs the ad from the ad server, pops it in, fits neatly right in the 250 pixel height space. Voila, no more cumulative layout shift. You're no longer being penalized by Google. Take Core Web Vitals with a bit of a grain of salt. I always relate these things to like a blizzard, right? Hey, a few snowflakes here and there. Okay, a little bit of poor cumulative layout shift here and there, but everything else looks good. No impact. But you get a million snowflakes together, and you got a blizzard on your hands, right? So you have cumulative layout shift problems, and your paint and your site is slow, and you've got other issues. After a while, Google will then begin to penalize those sites and not display you as high-end search results. So we've been able to see good search improvement just simply by improving your overall core web vitals. And cumulative layout shift is one of the biggest culprits in this. So a simple little thing, a little side note, if you're running a website, I don't recommend you have anything more than two sizes. I mean, other than like some special ads, but a 970 by 250 ad size, the IAB, Internet Advertising Bureau Standard Billboard, or the 300 by 250 size, the IAB medium rectangle size. I will build entire media operations off of just those two sizes. And it's amazingly simple for your advertisers to deliver. And one of the side benefits, I can hard code every ad space as 250 pixels. It'll work on both desktop and mobile. And I eliminate cumulative layout shift. So there you go. That's how to fix cumulative layout shift and your page speed insights, your core web vitals here. I probably should do a whole section on this. So I'll bring in maybe a good friend of mine, Matt Pramschuffer, for this one to talk about how to improve your site speed and overall page speed, cumulative layout shift, content, full paint, and other core web vitals on your site. Anyway, that's it for today. That was our first kind of Ask Me Anything. If you've got any questions at all that you would like to ask me about digital media, I don't care if it's email, social, apps, digital advertising, audience development, circulation, subscriptions, website, whatever you want to ask, whether it's in B2B, consumer, regional, feel free to pop those to me in an email. Just eric@nearviewmedia.com. I would love to hear from you guys, and maybe your question will be featured on the next episode of Ask Me Anything. So I hope that helps. Kind of a fun way to kick off the new year. Join me next week. Jez Walters is going to join me, and we're going to go over what's new in publishing, all the hottest things that are happening in the publishing world right now. We're going to keep you up to speed on what's important and what's not, so that you can keep up to speed on that. And we hope to see you next week. Cheers.